You've felt their eyes, heard the hushed whispers that abruptly cease when you enter a room, and noticed their subtle retreat. None of it is lost on you. They've labeled you Dark Witch, expecting you to crumble, to beg for mercy. But you didn't. You moved forward, growing stronger and wiser, becoming untouchable in ways they can't fathom. Their confusion has curdled into suspicion. They're rewriting their own narratives, twisting reality to justify their failures. No one could survive this alone, they tell themselves. They must be using dark forces. In their world, power isn't earned naturally, strength isn't a birthright, and success always reeks of deception. They live by control, manipulation, and fear, constantly striving to get ahead by stepping on others, draining their energy and forcing outcomes. Your rise utterly confuses them. You never begged, never played by their crooked rules, and never fell into their traps. Now they're in a full-blown panic. It doesn't make sense. You weren't supposed to be this powerful. And you certainly weren't supposed to win without getting your hands dirty. They believed they were the masterminds, pulling the strings, and you were just another pawn. But the truth is, you were never even playing their game. Everything they sent your way, every spell, every scheme, every whispered lie, backfired. The chaos they wished upon you returned to sender. Now, they're scrambling for answers, watching you closer than ever, desperate to understand what protects you, what kind of power you possess. Paranoia creeps in. They wonder if you're chanting at midnight or summoning unseen forces. But you don't need spells or rituals. Your power springs from something far greater, something they'll never grasp. They utterly underestimated the divine forces surrounding you. The ancestors who walk with you, the layers of protection woven into your very being. They were never just up against you. They were facing something far older, stronger, and more powerful than anything they could conjure. And that's why they lost. Now, their whispers are shaky, their hands trembling, sensing something closing in. They think you're haunting them, sending spirits, casting shadows over their lives, disturbing their peace. But you don't even have to lift a finger. In trying to control you, they curse themselves. Their own darkness has swallowed them whole, because divine protection and karma are both real. And every single thing they do you is now returning to them. They never expected the tables to turn, never imagined they'd be on the receiving end of consequences they so confidently unleashed. You were supposed to remain oblivious, a passive player, trusting their words, buying into their illusions, fulfilling the role they'd scripted for you. But something shifted within you. The signs became too loud, too glaring to ignore. The patterns repeated until they were impossible to dismiss. The truth pressed on your conscience until pretending was no longer an option. Your mind sharpened, your vision cleared, and all their illusions shattered. You began to see them, not as the masks they were, but for the energy beneath it all, the deceit, the envy, the endless manipulation. You didn't just catch their lies, you sensed them before a word was even spoken. And that shook them to the core. You could feel their anxiety in every nervous glance, hear the fear in their voices, and see the guilt flickering behind their eyes. Panic radiated off them in waves. For so long, they believed they were untouchable, certain their masks would never slip and their secrets would stay buried. But you know who lied, who betrayed, who smiled while plotting your downfall. You don't need receipts or confessions. The truth pulses in their energy. Every word feels hollow, every gesture coated with hidden motives, every apology dripping with insincerity. They underestimated you, assuming you were alone, unprotected, without guidance or higher wisdom. But they were wrong. Your ancestors have been guiding you, the Most High revealing the truth, and the spirits walking with you have missed nothing. Every warning, every vivid dream, Every quiet intuition led you straight to this awakening. You weren't supposed to become this aware, to see through their game. And now they panic. They scramble for control, testing you with subtle jabs, indirect messages, hints waiting for a reaction. But you don't play their game. Your calm silence unnerves them. Your refusal to respond drives them into paranoia. They know you know, but what terrifies them most is your lack of reaction. You're not seeking revenge, not exposing them, not engaging in their drama. You've simply withdrawn, stepping back, and allowing their own karma to catch up. That's what truly scares them. Because if you're not fighting, not trying to get even, not lashing out, then it must mean you were never weak. It means you were never under their control. The entire time, it was actually them being watched, judged, and weighed. Desperately, they look for answers. Are you using something? Do you have spiritual protection? Is someone guiding you? Their paranoia grows. They sense something always watching, something unseen tallying every move. They hear whispers in empty rooms, feel a presence lurking just beyond the edge of vision, and are plagued by strange, unexplainable dreams. They blame you, convinced you're working in the dark, sending spirits or manipulating energy. But you never had to. Their fears are self-made. The deception they built is now their prison, closing in and choking them. The darkness they conjured is now dragging them under. You don't have to do anything. Divine truth exposes what's hidden, and their worst nightmare is that the truth is you. They tried to break you in every way: lies, manipulation, spiritual attacks. At first, they were smug, convinced you'd never see it coming, certain they'd finally have control. They thought you were alone, unguarded, vulnerable. But every trap they set fell apart. Every attack backfired. Every weapon they aimed shattered before reaching you. They began to notice the shift. None of their spells stuck. Their words lost influence, and their sense of power crumbled to dust. Panic set in, and their whispered meetings grew desperate. Why isn't this working? What are we missing? Who is protecting them? Desperation drove them to seek out psychics, spiritualists, and energy workers. Anyone who could explain your resilience. They needed answers, needed to believe they still had control. But every reading confirmed what they feared most: you were chosen. Your path was divinely protected, your energy sealed and surrounded by higher forces. Still, they refused to accept it. No, it must be something else, they insisted. They must be using dark magic. Nobody is that powerful without help. They simply couldn't comprehend that true power doesn't come from rituals, manipulation, or secret knowledge whispered in shadows. It comes from something far greater. And that was always your advantage. They believed that true protection had to be bought, earned, or even stolen, never once grasping the reality of divine favor. The idea that someone could simply be covered by God's hand, immune to any spell, curse, or deception, was unfathomable to them. So, they clung to yet another story, convincing themselves that your protection wasn't real, that you must be involved in the occult, that what was happening just couldn't be natural. But beneath those stories, deep down, they knew the real truth. After years spent bending energy to their will, forcing outcomes, and twisting fate to suit their desires, they recognized what true manipulation looked like. And they knew this wasn't it. You never needed to play dirty. You never fought the way they did. Your protection wasn't something you conjured up with effort or ritual. It was something written into divine law before you ever drew your first breath. That truth was simply too heavy for them to accept. So they pushed back harder: more attacks, more desperate plots, more frantic attempts to claw back a sense of control. But with every move, they only sank deeper. Their own energy began to betray them. The spells and curses they cast tangled them in their own chaos. And every bit of darkness they sent out returned home to them with full force. Nothing worked. Nothing brought relief. Everything they tried backfired spectacularly. Restlessness took over. Anxiety gnawed at them from the inside out. Sleep became a distant memory. Shadows flickered at the edges of their vision, and whispers haunted the silence of every empty room. But it wasn't you tormenting them. It was the very forces they once invoked against others, now turning on them. The entities they summoned no longer listened. The energy they once manipulated slipped right through their fingers, and the war they started swallowed them whole. They thought themselves untouchable, like gods, able to bend fate and reality to their will, dictating who would rise and who would fall. But they forgot the one law that rules everything: no one escapes divine justice. They were never really fighting you. They were challenging the sacred order of the universe itself. And the universe always restores its balance, no matter how long it takes. Something in their world feels disturbingly off. And it's not just a passing thought. It's a creeping, ever-present tension that settles into the silence, fills the darkness, and lingers in every shadow. It's in the quiet moments, in the breath between words, and in the heaviness that clings to the air around them. They sense a presence they can't escape. A silent observer hovering just out of sight, watching and waiting with an intensity that rattles their nerves. There's a prickling awareness that their every move is being monitored, that something unseen is inching ever closer, biding its time. Sleep offers no refuge. Night after night they jolt awake, lungs straining for air, drenched in a cold, clammy sweat. The pounding of their heart echoing in the darkness. Their dreams have twisted into restless nightmares filled with haunting images, distorted echoes of their own actions, and shadows that whisper secrets they hoped would stay hidden. The nightmares are relentless, and the whispers, once easy to brush aside, now seem to seep from the very walls, growing louder and more insistent each time they try to ignore them. Even in daylight, peace is impossible to find. The world around them warps in subtle, unsettling ways. Objects shift or fall without explanation. Familiar spaces feel foreign and hostile. Shadows in the corners of their vision grow longer, sometimes stretching out like fingers, sometimes coiling like smoke. Always there, always watching. Mirrors become an enemy. Their own reflection seems off, as if it belongs to a stranger or holds a secret it refuses to share. And at times they feel as if something else is staring back at them with accusing eyes. That sense of dread clings to their every step. At night, the quiet is broken by phantom footsteps echoing down empty hallways, and the feeling of being watched becomes so suffocating it leaves them jumping at the smallest sound. Every room feels too crowded, the air too dense, charged with something electric and nameless. They become hyper-aware of the weight of their own presence, of the hush that falls when they enter a space, of the cold that seems to radiate from within their own soul. They used to think they had power over the unseen, believed they could summon and command forces at will, bend spiritual energy to their purpose, and manipulate what others couldn't even comprehend. They felt confident, secure, convinced they could move in the shadows, hidden from all consequence. But now, the very forces they called on have slipped beyond their grasp. The spirits they relied on have gone silent or grown hostile, and the energy they once shaped now rebels against their touch. What once made them feel invincible now leaves them exposed, vulnerable, and hunted by the very darkness they unleashed. Desperation seeps into their daily life. They whisper anxiously among themselves, questioning, blaming, searching for any explanation. They ask, "Is someone doing this to us? Did they send something back? Why is this happening?" The fear becomes a parasite, feeding on their doubts, eroding their arrogance, and eating away at any sense of control. But deep down, beneath all the frantic denial and suspicion, a cold realization grows. They know this isn't some act of revenge, and it isn't you. This is their own darkness coming home to roost. Every malicious thought they wished on you, every sleepless night, every moment of dread or anxiety, every calculated move meant to destroy or weaken you. All of it is now being returned to them with interest. The dread that once filled your life has become their constant companion. The heavy weight on the chest, the chills crawling down the spine, the deep gnawing sense that something terrible is about to happen. It all belongs to them now. The universe in its unwavering wisdom is simply restoring balance, sending back every spell, every curse, every toxic intention to its source. They are starting to understand that there are no shortcuts when it comes to energy, karma, and truth. Universal law doesn't play favorites, and it doesn't bend for anyone. No matter how skilled or cunning they think they are, they're learning that every hidden attack, every secret wish for someone's downfall, every act of spiritual manipulation is recorded and accounted for, and the debt must always be paid. The power they once felt has turned against them, and now the forces they trusted are nowhere to be found. Instead of confidence, all that remains is a nervous, paranoid energy. They move differently, hesitant, always glancing over their shoulders, flinching at the slightest sound, haunted by a presence that seems to close in more each day. Despite all of this, they still try to rationalize what's happening. In their world, power is always tied to manipulation, control, and force. So, they convince themselves that you must be behind it, that you're sending spirits, working magic, or calling on something darker than anything they ever dared. But what they will never grasp is that you don't need to do anything at all. Your protection was written into existence long before this conflict ever began. Your energy is sealed by a force far greater than anything they can imagine. The truth is, their downfall isn't a result of your actions. It's a reflection of their own. The mirror the universe now holds up to them shows the consequences of every choice, every secret, every darkness they thought would stay hidden. And that is what terrifies them most, not some imagined revenge, not the possibility that you're fighting back, but the undeniable truth that their own reflection is what's destroying them. The fear they sent out now lives inside them, and the universe is simply returning everything multiplied to its rightful owner. They're running out of explanations, and the pressure is starting to suffocate them. Every trick they ever trusted, lies, subtle manipulation, attempts at spiritual warfare, has failed them one by one. None of their efforts could touch your spirit. No amount of scheming or behind the scenes sabotage could shake your resolve or pull you back under their thumb. You simply refuse to break, refuse to fold, refuse to play by rules they themselves rewrote to benefit their egos. Faced with your resilience, they're left confused and insecure. So, they desperately scramble for something, anything, that will help them make sense of their powerlessness. That's when the rumors begin. There must be something unnatural about them, they mutter. No one can be that strong alone. It's a story born from fear, paranoia, and the refusal to accept that maybe they never had the power they thought they did. The whispers begin as little doubts, but quickly grow into a shadowy chorus that follows you everywhere. The paranoia spreads beyond their own minds. They start telling anyone who will listen. Sometimes it's a whispered warning, a subtle suggestion at a social gathering. Other times, it's planting outright suspicion in the minds of mutual friends, colleagues, even strangers. They drop hints and twist facts, retelling your story until the truth is almost unrecognizable. It's easier for them to paint you as dangerous, as an outsider, as someone dabbling in things best left alone, than to admit that what's really terrifying is your authenticity and strength. To them, it's less threatening to accuse you of dark practices or label you a witch than to face the reality that divine favor is real, that spiritual protection is real, that God's hand could actually be moving in your life, independent of anything they try to control. Despite this, they keep trying. Their words turn into daggers, carefully sharpened accusations wrapped in concern or gossip. Stay away from them. Something is wrong. I just have a feeling. At first, these warnings are for themselves, a way to rationalize their own behavior. But the more they repeat it, the more they hope to convince others and sway opinions. Still, the fear inside them festers. The guilt over what they've done gnaws at them, and the burden of all their lies becomes unbearable. Some crack under the weight and try a different approach. They circle back into your space, this time wearing a different mask, soft-spoken, apologetic, offering empty words of reconciliation, stretching smiles that never reach their eyes. "I've changed," they insist. "Let's move on from the past. I miss having you in my life." But you feel it. The falseness in their energy, the dissonance between their words and their true intentions. Their apologies aren't about healing or making amends. They want to observe you, to test you, to look for any weakness you might show. It's less about peace, more about protecting themselves from the consequences of their own choices. They're longing for your strength and wisdom that never fades. Deep down, they still crave the very qualities they tried to destroy. The way you rise from every setback, your insight, your calm in the face of chaos. They think that if they get close enough, they might absorb some of your protection or deflect the karma that is surely coming for them. What they don't realize is that your energy isn't just a shield. It's a mirror. The same presence that shelters you exposes everything false in them. The longer they remain near you, the more unbearable their own reflection becomes. That's when they lash out again, unable to bear the discomfort, spinning new rumors, trying to turn others against you, hoping someone will join them in their misery. But it's too late. The energy has shifted, and people around you are starting to notice the desperation, the cracks in their story, the instability in their words and actions. The truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how many lies try to bury it. And so, they find themselves trapped in a cycle of their own making, haunted by the energy they once weaponized, tormented by the very darkness they projected onto you. The difference now is undeniable. You are free, and they are unraveling. While they scramble to rewrite narratives and cloak themselves in new disguises, the divine covering over your life only becomes more evident. You were never the villain in their story. They just couldn't accept that you were the light they couldn't manipulate. Let this be a reminder to every chosen one listening. You don't need revenge when truth is your ally. Stay grounded, stay pure, and let your energy continue to speak louder than any rumor ever could. The universe is your witness, and justice, both seen and unseen, is already unfolding. If this message spoke to your spirit, helped you stand taller in your truth, or reminded you of your divine protection, consider supporting the channel. You can buy me a coffee using the link in the description to help keep these messages flowing. Or, if you'd like to go deeper on this journey with us, join the channel as a member and become part of this powerful soul-led community. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Rise and Shine for more empowering spiritual insight. Until next time, stay in your light, chosen ones. They can't stop what's already been anointed.